Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Today's story is unlike anything we've ever shared. Let's begin. She wrote her number on a napkin. Our napkin. That's how this began. I wasn't supposed to see it. I wasn't even supposed to be there. It was raining hard. I ducked into that bar because my windshield wipers quit mid-commute and I couldn't see a thing. I figured I'd wait out the storm with a cheap beer and maybe a dry towel if they had one behind the counter. But the moment I stepped in, I felt it in my chest. The slow-motion kind of dread they talk about in war movies. There, in our usual booth. The one by the window Lauren always picked because she said it made her eyes look greener. She sat, tilted forward, smiling like she hadn't in years. And across from her, a man with a sharp jawline and a smugness that practically dripped off his collar. He slid the napkin toward her like it was a contract. She laughed. Then, in the same casual hand she once used to write, "I love you" notes in my lunchbox, she wrote her number. I didn't even know I was walking. My legs moved on their own. Past the jukebox. Past the sticky floor. Past every warning bell in my gut. I reached their table just as she lifted her glass. Her eyes met mine, and the smile froze on her face like someone hit pause. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my wedding ring, warm from being held too tight for too long, and placed it quietly on the napkin she had just written on. Then I walked out. Rain hit harder now, colder, like it was punishing me for not seeing this sooner. She never ran after me. She never called that night. But 2 hours later, I got a notification on my phone. The location I shared with her for 5 years had been turned off. When I got home that night, the silence was so loud it felt like it had teeth. Every tick of the wall clock stabbed at my ears. The kitchen still smelled like the lasagna I cooked for our anniversary 2 nights ago, the one she said she was too tired to eat. The leftovers were untouched in the fridge. The wine I picked up for us was still unopened. I remember standing there like a ghost in my own house, dripping rainwater onto the floor, my wedding ring gone, my hands trembling like they'd committed a crime. I didn't cry. I wanted to. I kept waiting for the wave to crash, but it just hovered, heavy, pressing on my chest. Instead of collapsing, I wandered around the house like I was searching for evidence. Her perfume still lingered in the hallway. The bathroom light was on, a towel slung carelessly on the edge of the tub. Her hair straightener was still warm. I checked her drawer, even though I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe a note. Maybe guilt. Maybe some kind of clue that this was all just a misunderstanding. But all I found was emptiness. And then, at exactly 12:19 a.m., she walked in. Dripping wet, mascara smeared, holding her shoes in her hand. She froze when she saw me standing in the living room, soaked from the rain, but numb from something deeper. "You're still up?" she asked, like she didn't expect me to be there. Like I didn't just watch her write her number on a napkin for another man. I didn't respond. I stared at her. She must have noticed something different in my face because her whole demeanor changed. Her shoulders dropped, her voice softened. She looked smaller. "I was just having drinks," she said, avoiding eye contact. I didn't think it'd matter. Didn't think it'd matter. She said it like she was talking about forgetting to take out the trash. I stepped forward, slow. "Who was he?" Her jaw tightened. "It's not what you think." I laughed. A small, pathetic sound that escaped before I could stop it. "You wrote your number on a napkin," I said. "Our napkin." You didn't even flinch. Lauren didn't deny it. She didn't explain it. She just stood there, staring at the floor like a child caught stealing cookies. "I don't know why I did it," she whispered. That hurt worse than any confession. Because if there had been love behind it, if it was passion or even lust, I could at least pretend it meant something. But this was nothing. Meaningless. A shrug in the form of betrayal. I should have screamed. I should have thrown something, broken a plate, demanded answers. But I didn't know how to scream without a sound. So instead, I walked past her, climbed the stairs, and locked the bedroom door behind me. And that's when I cried. Not because I lost her, but because I realized she'd been gone for a long time, and I had just been too weak to notice. The next morning wasn't filled with chaos like you'd expect. No screaming, no begging, no slammed doors. Just eggs cooking in a pan like it was any other Saturday, as if the world hadn't come undone 12 hours earlier. Lauren stood at the stove wearing one of my old t-shirts, humming a song like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't handed a stranger her number while still wearing my ring. I watched her from the hallway, numb, wondering how someone could shift realities so easily. My entire world had tilted, and she was making breakfast. "I made yours the way you like it," she said when she noticed me. Over easy. Over easy. Like the way she treated our vows. I sat across from her at the table, staring at the plate but not touching it. I didn't even know why I sat down. Habit, maybe. Or some pathetic part of me that still hoped she'd say something real. She finally looked up from her fork. "Can we talk about last night?" I nodded once, stiffly. She set her utensils down with an exaggerated sigh, like this whole thing was an inconvenience. "I know what you saw must have looked bad." "Looked bad? You were giving a stranger your number," I said quietly. "There's no looked bad about it." Her eyes darted away. "It was harmless. We were just talking, and I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I've been feeling disconnected lately." Disconnected. That word hit like a slap. "So you cheat when you feel disconnected?" I asked. "Is that just your setting now?" She winced. "I didn't cheat. Nothing happened." I laughed bitterly. "Nothing physical, maybe. But don't stand there and tell me you didn't know exactly what you were doing." Lauren crossed her arms, the defensiveness rising like a tide. "I'm not the only one who's been checked out, Daniel. You've been emotionally absent for months. We barely talk. You come home and stare at your phone or the wall like I'm not even here." That stung because it was true, but it wasn't the same. Being distant isn't betrayal. Withdrawing isn't handing your number to a man in a dim bar booth like you're 17 and single. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream the hurt into the walls until the drywall cracked. But all I could do was sit there and stare at the person I once thought would never look at another man that way. Then she said something that hollowed me out. "I didn't think you'd care that much," she muttered. Like I didn't love her. Like I hadn't spent years memorizing her moods, defending her to friends, supporting her through job changes and anxiety, and that awful week she thought her mother was sick. I stood up slowly. My untouched eggs had gone cold. "I cared every day," I said, voice shaking. "I just didn't think I had to prove it constantly to keep you from straying." She didn't respond. And for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Not because I was angry, but because I was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that only comes when something inside you breaks and can't be put back. I walked to the front door, picked up my coat, and turned back to her one last time. "You didn't just hand him your number. You handed him the version of you I fell in love with. And you gave him something I didn't even realize you were still capable of offering." Then I left. Where did I go? I didn't know yet. All I knew was this time, I wasn't the one begging to be seen. I didn't go far. Just a cheap roadside motel 15 minutes from the house. One of those places with flickering signs, stale-smelling curtains, and a vending machine that barely worked. But I didn't care. I didn't want comfort. I wanted distance, mental, emotional, and physical, from a house that no longer felt like home. The first night there, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. Her smile in that bar, the way she casually handed over her number, her dismissive tone over breakfast. "I didn't think you'd care that much." Those words looped in my head like a sick ringtone. I kept wondering what else she thought I wouldn't care about. What else she had done. By 2 a.m., I was pacing the room like a caged animal. I opened my phone and stared at our last shared photos. Anniversary dinners, vacation selfies, that blurry shot of her laughing in bed with messy hair. They looked like strangers now. I looked like a fool. That's when I made the worst decision of my life. I went back to the house. She wasn't there. Her car was gone. I knew the garage code, so I let myself in. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just knew I needed answers. One she wouldn't give me. One she kept dancing around like this was some kind of misunderstanding. Her phone was on the nightstand, unlocked. I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding like I was about to commit a crime. I had never snooped. Never gone through her messages in all the years we were together. I believed in privacy, in trust. But that trust had shattered the moment I saw her write on that napkin. I opened her texts. The first thing I noticed was that there weren't many. That alone was suspicious. But in the recently deleted folder, where she clearly thought I'd never look, I found everything. A thread with a number saved under J. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely scroll. It started out innocent enough. "Great meeting you last week. We should grab drinks sometime." Then it spiraled. Flirting. Late-night jokes. Inside references. Photos of outfits asking, "Too much for drinks." Voice notes. Even a video of her spinning in front of the mirror in a dress I'd never seen before. She captioned it, "Would this get your attention across a bar?" I dropped the phone on the bed like it had burned me. This wasn't just a weak moment at a bar. This was premeditated. Days, maybe weeks, of build-up. She had emotionally stepped out of our marriage long before she ever touched a pen to that napkin. I should have left it there. I should have walked away. But I kept reading. Because pain demands answers, even if they destroy you. There was one message that gutted me entirely. From 2 days before our anniversary. Jay, still going through with the dinner? Her, yeah. He planned something sweet. I don't want to hurt him, not yet. Not yet. So it wasn't just betrayal, it was calculation. She knew what she was doing. She waited. Decided I could handle a little longer being lied to, so she could play both sides. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat down on the bed and stared at the wall like I was trying to drill through it with my eyes. Eventually, I took a photo of the entire thread with my own phone and emailed it to myself. Not because I wanted revenge. I didn't even know what I wanted. But I needed to stop gaslighting myself. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. That my pain was real. That her betrayal wasn't imagined. I left the phone exactly where I found it, locked up the house, and returned to that grim little motel room that now felt like a sanctuary. And for the first time in days, I slept. Not well, but without nightmares. Because the worst one had already happened, and I had finally stopped pretending I didn't see it. The following day, I didn't message her. Not a word. No passive-aggressive texts. No long emotional paragraphs. Silence. I wanted her to sit with it. I wanted her to wonder whether I knew, whether I was done, or worse, whether I'd stopped caring. I needed her to feel even a fraction of the unease she had so effortlessly poured into me. By noon, she started calling. First once, then again, then 4 missed calls. Her voicemails sounded confused, almost nervous. Daniel, can you just let me know you're okay? That was the 3rd one. The 4th was shorter. Just a long inhale, then, please call me. But I didn't. Instead, I went to a coffee shop down the street from her office. I sat at a corner table with my laptop open, pretending to work, while my mind spiraled through 100 possible endings to this story. None of them felt good. All of them felt necessary. Then I saw her. She walked into the cafe around 3:15 p.m., wearing that beige coat she only brings out when she's trying to look composed. She didn't see me. She was on her phone, pacing by the far window. A minute later, he showed up. Jay? The man from the bar. Same smug expression, same too perfect jawline. He leaned in to kiss her cheek, and she let him. I could have sworn she flinched afterward, though I don't know if it was guilt or just her scanning for witnesses. They sat 2 tables over. I sank into my seat, barely breathing. I didn't want them to notice me. I wanted to watch them the way she never let me watch the truth before. Their conversation was hushed. Too close. His hand kept brushing hers. She looked uncomfortable. Not because she didn't want to be there. No, she chose this. But because reality was creeping in. Every time her phone buzzed, she jolted. She was expecting me to explode. She just didn't know when. And then I saw it. He handed her something small. I couldn't see what it was, but her fingers curled around it like it was dangerous. She looked down at the object, nodded, then slipped it into her coat pocket. Her expression changed. No more smiles. No more giggles. Just tension. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe I wanted her to laugh with him again so I could hate her without hesitation. But she didn't. She looked scared. Not scared of me. Scared of the decision she was making. At 3:47 p.m., she stood up. No kiss. No hug. Just a glance back at him, and then she walked out. I waited a full minute before I followed. She didn't go back to work. She got in her car and drove straight to our house. I didn't follow her home. Not yet. Instead, I circled the block twice, heart pounding, brain unraveling. What had he given her? A key? A letter? A hotel room card? Something important, and she was carrying it into our house like it belonged there. Finally, I drove back to the motel. My hands shook the entire drive. Back inside the room, I paced for nearly an hour, staring at the photo evidence I had taken the night before, the digital knife twisting deeper with every glance. Then I made a decision. I sent her a single text. Check the email I just forwarded you. No greeting. No emotion. She read it instantly. No reply. A few minutes later, I saw that the location sharing between us, which she had turned off, was back on. She wanted me to see where she was. She wanted me to come home. But she had no idea I had already been watching, long enough to know that some things don't need to be heard to be understood. And what I understood was this. The apology she owed me would never be enough. I didn't go back that night. I wanted to sure. I wanted to see her face when she opened that email and realized I'd read every message, listened to every voice note, screenshotted every piece of her carefully hidden truth. But showing up would have given her power again, and I wasn't ready for that. Not after seeing her sit across from him like they were in some alternate life together, one where I didn't exist. No, if she wanted a confrontation, she'd have to wait. I needed time to prepare. But then something unexpected happened. At 7:12 a.m. the next morning, I got a text. Not a paragraph, just an address. Our house. And 2 words, come now. I stared at it for 5 full minutes. She'd never texted me like that before. Not cold, not formal. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't I miss you, or let's talk. Just an order. I almost ignored it. Almost deleted it, and went back to staring at the motel ceiling like I had for the past 2 nights. But something about the tone, it wasn't like her. And I needed to know what she was playing at. When I arrived, the house was quiet. Door unlocked. No movement. No music. No TV. Not even her usual clinking of a mug in the kitchen. I walked in slowly, half expecting her to leap out with some dramatic explanation or apology reheated from the night before. But instead, I saw a cardboard box sitting on our bed. My wedding ring was on top. That stopped me cold. The box was sealed with a single piece of tape, and her handwriting across the top read, then decide. I hesitated. Everything in me screamed not to play her game. But I opened it anyway. Inside were printed emails, dozens of them. Pages and pages. Correspondence between her and Jay. Not just messages of flirting or guilt-ridden confessions, but something else entirely. Buried in those pages were long exchanges about regret, about panic, about him pressuring her to leave me, about him suggesting things, pushing timelines, talking about shared bank accounts and her moving in with him. He even sent her a Google Doc titled Transition Plan. I felt sick. This wasn't just an affair. This was an invasion. A plan. A calculated dismantling of my marriage written out in bullet points like a business proposal. She had replied to some of it, hesitantly. I'm not ready. Daniel doesn't deserve this. This is happening too fast. But she never stopped it. And then, near the bottom of the stack, was something else. A printed photo. Grainy. Zoomed in. From a bar camera, probably. It showed me, standing at her table, placing the ring down, eyes hollow, jaw clenched. She had gotten the image from the bar owner. She wrote on a sticky note attached to it. Said she wanted to remember the moment she realized she lost something she couldn't replace. Below it was a handwritten letter. Not a text. Not an email. Actual pen and paper, like she suddenly remembered how to be human. She confessed. To everything. The lies, the timing, the thrill of someone new. The way it made her feel powerful for a while. She wrote that she never stopped loving me, but she had stopped valuing me. And once that stopped, the rest fell apart quickly. She said I made her feel safe, so safe that she stopped thinking I'd ever walk away. And that made her reckless. But the part that stuck with me? I didn't think you'd notice because I didn't think you saw me anymore. But the truth is, I stopped seeing you. I sat down on the edge of the bed and read the letter twice. Maybe 3 times. Not because I believed her, but because I needed to understand what kind of person thinks this kind of devastation can be explained in ink. I placed the letter back in the box, closed the lid, and carried it downstairs. She was in the kitchen, silent, waiting. When I walked past her, I didn't say a word. I placed the box on the counter. Then I pulled my phone out, showed her the photo of her and Jay from the cafe, and said, I saw you before you saw me. She blinked. Her mouth opened, but I raised a hand. I'm not here for your excuses. I'm here to tell you that the version of you in those letters, that's not the woman I married. And the version of me that tolerated it, he's gone too. Then I walked out, leaving the ring on the box where it belonged. I didn't go back to the motel. I didn't go to a friend's place or call someone to cry to. I didn't even drive aimlessly like those broken men in the movies do. I just sat in my car in the parking lot of a laundromat, engine off, doors locked, staring through the windshield as if the answers were written in the rain-streaked glass. That box, that photo of me from the bar, her suddenly poetic apology, it was all too perfect. Like she was trying to wrap betrayal in soft words, hoping I'd forget the sharp edges underneath. And the worst part? A small, pathetic part of me wanted to fall for it. I almost did. But then I remembered something she said early in our relationship. We were lying on a blanket under the stars on one of those cheesy camping trips, and she whispered, "You can't break something gently, Daniel. You can only choose whether to be honest about breaking it." I didn't get it then. I do now. She didn't break us gently. She broke us with a smile, with a pen on a napkin, with 100 tiny cuts she thought I'd never feel. That night, I made a decision, not out of anger, but out of clarity. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to burn her clothes or slash tires or post screenshots on social media. That's not who I am. That's not who I ever want to be. But I was going to disappear from her world, from her memory, from the version of me that ever let this happen. No revenge, just silence. So I started erasing. First, I deleted every photo of us from my phone. Not in anger, but like closing a book you never want to read again. Then I packed up everything that reminded me of her. Not just the big things, the wedding photos, the dried bouquet from our 3rd anniversary, but the little things too. The coffee mug with the chip she always used. The playlist we made for our road trip to Maine. The stupid magnet from that weekend at the lake cabin where we argued for 2 days straight, but still kissed like teenagers on the last night. All of it. Gone. I called my office and requested a 2-week leave. No explanation. Just space. I booked a one-way flight to the other side of the country. Oregon, a place I'd always wanted to visit but never had time for because she didn't like the cold. I rented a small cabin in a town I couldn't even pronounce and told no one where I was going. Not even my brother. The day before I left, I did one last thing. I went back to the house, not for closure, not for confrontation, just to take the last piece of myself out of it. I walked in quietly. She wasn't there. A note was on the counter. "Please talk to me." I didn't even flip it over. I walked straight to the upstairs office and opened the drawer where I'd kept our backup hard drive. Photos, documents, wedding videos, receipts from our life together. I took it out, stared at it, then unplugged it and left the drawer empty. I didn't throw it away. I didn't destroy it. I just took it, because I wanted my version of the story to stay mine. Before leaving, I opened her laptop, went to the shared cloud folder titled Us, and removed myself as an editor. I added one line in the description box before removing my access completely. This version of me no longer exists. And that was it. I walked out of the house we built, locked the door behind me, dropped the key through the mail slot, and didn't look back. Not once. She didn't call. She didn't chase. Maybe she understood. Or maybe she thought I was bluffing. But I wasn't. I had finally left the version of myself that tolerated less than he deserved. Oregon was cold, quiet, and healing in ways I didn't expect. The first night in that tiny cabin, I sat by the window with a cup of black coffee and just listened to the wind in the trees, the distant sound of water, the way silence can finally feel like peace when you're no longer waiting for someone to fill it. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I breathed. Slowly. For the first time in what felt like years, I breathed. The mornings were the best. I'd wake up without dread. No second guessing if she was lying. No fake smiles over burnt toast. No pretending that I didn't notice how far apart we had become. I hiked trails I couldn't name, watched fog roll across the river like a curtain opening on a brand new life. I wasn't healed overnight. That would be a lie. Some days, I still replayed her voice in my head, or the feeling of putting that ring on the bar napkin. But each time, it hurt less. What surprised me most wasn't how quickly I learned to live without her. It was how deeply I began to remember who I was before her. I started writing again. Bad poetry, short stories, things I'd buried under years of busy schedules and emotional exhaustion. I found an old typewriter in a local thrift shop and spent hours punching out thoughts I didn't even know I had. I met people who knew nothing about my past, who didn't look at me with pity or judgment. Just a guy in a flannel shirt trying to find himself in a place with more trees than people. One evening, I stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking a valley bursting with gold and crimson leaves, and I finally understood what I had gained. I hadn't just walked away from a cheating wife. I had walked back to myself. That realization hit harder than anything else. Because for so long, I thought losing her meant losing everything. But it turns out, she was just a chapter. Not the whole book. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even bitter. If anything, I'm grateful. Grateful that her betrayal forced me to stop existing and start living. And maybe, just maybe, someone else out there needed to hear that it's okay to let go. That it's okay to leave, even when you love them. Especially when they stopped loving you the way you deserve. I'm still here. I'm still healing. But I'm no longer broken. I'm becoming someone I can finally be proud of. Have you ever reached a point where walking away brought you peace instead of pain? Tell us your moment in the comments. If this story moved you, like and subscribe to Reddit Confessions, where real stories live.